Good evening, everyone. I have been asked to welcome you to the second in the series of panel discussions that the Conference of Churches is undertaking in commemoration of our 50th anniversary of independence as a nation. Today's panel discussion is entitled The Role of Education in Creating National Sustainable Development. Let us pray, and then I shall introduce to you the moderator. Most Holy One, we are grateful to you for this beautiful country in which we live. We thank you for the progress that we have made as a nation, but we acknowledge that there's so much that still needs to be done. We pray that our panel discussions would at least get people talking about the issues and resolving to do something about them. We ask that you guide our discussions this evening, and may you be glorified in all that is said here this evening. We make this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. My name is Osbert James. I'm a member of the Conference of Churches, and I'm happy to be able to host the second panel discussion in our church. Our moderator for today is Kenny James. His full name is Anthony Kenny James, and he is the acting principal of the Grenada Boys Secondary School, which is his alma mater and also my alma mater. Mr. James is a former executive officer of the Grenada Union of Teachers and vice principal at the St. Rose Modern Secondary School in Guelph, where he instructed in history and social studies and also had a stint as acting principal at that school. He was president of the Grenada Trade Union Council, having held every presidential position in the TUC, that's the Trade Union Council, and past president general of the Grenada Union of Teachers, GUT, having served in the presidency from 2009 to 2013. Moreover, he has served in all presidential positions within the GUT as well. Mr. James holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Liberal Studies and International Politics with honors from the St. George's University, a Master's of Science degree in Education with specialization in Teachers Leadership from Walden University, and a post-diploma in Quality Assurance in Higher Education from the University of Mauritius. In addition, he is a trained secondary school teacher and holds a certificate in construction management with the designation of accredited director by the Chartered Governance Institute of Canada. Mr. James continues to represent the Grenada Trade Union Council and is one of Grenada's representatives on the General Council of the Caribbean Congress of Labor. He is passionate about education and the trade union movement, and is always willing to share his education, his experience, and his knowledge. Let us welcome Mr. Kenny James.
Thank you very much, Reverend James and James, to GBSS James. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us via social media, our in-house audience, and most importantly, our distinguished panel, pleasant good afternoon. We are going to delve into a very important topic, education. Something that is important to all of us. Today's discussion is centered around the theme the role of education in creating national sustainable development. At the end of it, we should have some idea. We will have an experience of what that should look like in the next few years, where education should take us in Grenada, maybe even the Caribbean, in the next few years. Today's panel, as you clearly can see, is one of excellence. People who have been involved in education, and it's a very balanced one, because we have a former minister for education, an educator, of course. We have a student, and we have a leader in education on the technical side of things. So this presents a wonderful balance. And so we are going to hear from them. Each of the speakers will have 7 to 10 minutes to make their presentation. So at the end of the 7th minute, I'll indicate, and at the 10th minute, I'll ensure that they conclude. If there's need for any immediate clarity after the speaker presents, then I will ask the question. However, after we've had the 3 presentations, then we would open the floor for interaction, questions, answers, comments, maybe even an emotional outburst, according to. But this is the way we would go about it. So let me introduce our first panelist, Sister Margaret Yamoha. She belongs to the religious congregation of the Handmaids of the Holy Child Jesus, based in Battle Hill, St. Andrew. She is a Ghanaian, but has been living and working in Grenada with 2 other sisters for the past 14 years. In January 2011, Sister Margaret was appointed as the Executive Director of the New Life organization, NULO. She is passionate about youth, so her ministry is mainly with the youth at the church and the young people at NULO. This year, Sister celebrates 25 years as a nun. That deserves a round of applause. She holds a bachelor's degree in education, a postgraduate diploma in educational leadership, and a master's degree in educational administration. I have worked with Sister for some years now, and indeed, I can attest to the fact that she's passionate about what she does. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our first panelist to do her presentation, Sister Margaret.
Well, good evening, first of all, to our viewers all over the world and to our honorable live audience. We'd like to thank God. This is not part of the 10 minutes. We'd like to thank God for life, especially for the life of Grenada, Carriacou, MPT Martinique, and its people. We are grateful also to God for this initiative by the Council of Churches. It is very timely, very appropriate, and I believe this should be done more often, not just for the 50th anniversary of independence, because conversations like this help us as educators, students, policymakers, and you as parents and guardians, so that we are put on our toes. Sometimes it gets a little comfortable when the seat becomes very comfortable and you feel that everything is going well. So I applaud this initiative. My role this evening is to talk about the importance and the relevance of TVET. in the role of education in creating a national sustainable development. I know we have diverse audience, and so permit me just to give a little introduction about TVET before going into its importance, because that introduction is important for us to understand how important it is and how relevant we can make it in our dear nation. So TVET, we know it to be technical and vocational education and training. In Grenada, we commonly call it skills training, right? So when you say skills training, everybody knows what you are talking about. Though it lacks an aspect of it that, because we call it skills training, we seem to leave the education part of the TVET and focus more on the skills, right? And let me also put it out there that Grenada has come a very long way when it comes to the development of TVET, but we still have a very long way to go. And as a disclaimer, compared to other developed countries and some other countries who have really developed their TVET, we are still at the teething stage. And so whatever importance or relevance we have is equal to the amount of time, the energy, the resources that have gone into it. You can't get what you haven't put in, right? You can't reap where you haven't sown. So how much we have sown is how much we reap. And that would help us to understand that we need to do more sowing, right, so that we can reap more. Now, in Grenada, TVET actually is not a new name. TVET is a household name. We may not call it TVET, but everything we do surrounds TVET. We think TVET. We eat TVET. We breathe TVET. What do I mean by that? Now, I'm looking at one of the ladies here who is looking so beautiful, and I know that before she came here, she ensured that the dress she wore was very appropriate, nicely made. That dress is TVET. And then, if she didn't go to her beautician in front of her mirror with all the different cosmetics products, she made sure that her face was very well done, very presentable. If somebody had done that for her, that is TVET. When we finished here, or even before you came, some of you had your late lunch. I know about late lunch because some of you are coming from the office. You may have walked into a restaurant right next to your office to have a nice bite. The person who prepared the food, that is TVET right there. I believe every one of us drove a vehicle to come here. If you didn't drive a vehicle, you sat in one. The building of the vehicle, servicing the vehicle to keep it on the road. If any part gets a problem, getting it fixed, that is TVET. Now as I entered, one of the things that caught my eye was the beautiful work inside this church. And I was telling my younger panelists that the outside is very deceptive because the inside looks very beautiful, right? We have chairs, everything, the woodwork that is done, the plumbing, everything, that is TVET. And so everything about our lives is TVET. Now, in Grenada, TVET is given attention right from the primary school to some level. So primary, they get into secondary school, they have exposure to TVET. And then when they leave secondary school, whether they are going to TAMCC or going to New Law to continue, either they are doing the academic side of education or they are coming to New Law or any of the other training institutions to continue to do TVET. And so I am saying this to mean that let us not think or look at TVET as some kind of latter-day generation creation that God made after he finished everything he was creating and thought, oh, I forgot one last thing. No, it has been with us from the beginning of time. It's just that we haven't paid much attention to it. And in Grenada, the TVET program is managed by the Grenada National Training Agency. Now, this agency has the responsibility to develop what we call occupational standards. Now, occupational standards are the guides that guide the knowledge that those who go into TVET programs would gain, the skills they would learn, and the behaviors that they would exhibit when they finish the program and they go out there to the world of work. Now, TVET mainly uses competency-based training. What do we mean by competency-based training? We are talking about the kind of approach to learning that allows the learner to learn through experience, to learn, evaluate himself or herself as he or she goes, and it is learner-centered, as opposed to a lot of our academic education, where the teacher who becomes a repository of knowledge comes into the classroom and gives the knowledge. We know these days a lot of our students go far ahead of the teachers, and so these are exceptions. But when it comes to TVET, the learner is supposed to be at the center of it. The program moves according to the pace of the learner. So it is not necessarily time-bound to say, in a matter of 3 months, you have to finish all these areas of study, and you should be able to perform. TVET is also application and performance-based. So if you tell me that you know how to make cake, you can write it beautifully for me. TVET now will tell you, make a cake for me, right? And so putting that into action, you know how to build a house, put all the parts together, nice, now build a house for me. So the knowledge that you gain steps beyond just knowledge into application, the practicality of it. Now, the standards that I use for TVET training are developed in collaboration with industry, with employers. Because at the end of the day, when they finish, they are either going to be self-employed or they are going to be employed by existing businesses. And so these people form part of what they want to see when the person finishes and come into the world of work. So they are part of the development of the standards that are used for training. Now, in Grenada, the National Training Agency has up to level 5 as of now. So level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. However, about over 70% of the standards that have been developed are at level 1 and level 2. Yeah, that is a reality. And then the rest, level 3, a little percentage level 4, and about just 1% at level 5. And so that is why I said that we have a very long way to go. And so if you are looking at the importance and the relevance of TVET, we are looking at it according to what we are able to do. And so we may not be able to compare foot for foot with countries like Germany or Finland, who have really taken TVET to a whole new level, and their economies are based on the outcomes of TVET. All right. Now, some of the TVET programs that we do at NULO surround the construction areas, and so all the different areas of construction, the hospitality industry, we have the service industry, and then part of it, the education areas. At NULO, however, we do only level 1 and level 2. So we are still talking about those who are semi-skilled and just the first step of skilled workers. A lot of the certification that industries may be looking for, and because they don't find them in Grenada and therefore might export them or import them, would be from level 3, 4, 5, the higher level certification, where you are talking about master craftsmen and master craft women. Now, let's turn now to the relevance of TVET and the importance. TVET has the ability to bridge the skills gap. Now, you hear this a lot, skills gap, skills gap. What does that mean? Skills gap, here we are referring to what the employers are looking for, the mismatch between I, as an employer, what I am looking for, and what the person who is coming to me has. So that mismatch, I am looking for somebody who would not design this building, but will design the building and build it up to the lintel face. Now, the one coming has the skill to design. The person is not able to build it up to the lentil phase. So the gap there is that you need to fill it for the person to be able to build up to that stage. And so what TVET does is, because we are working with industries, we are able to identify what areas are the gaps and what should the standards focus on, right? And so that is one relevance, one importance of TVET. Another importance also with TVET, now, we know, being a developing country, one of our commonest challenging issues has to do with the level of poverty, sometimes as a result of unemployment. Now, if everybody has to get a degree, we know at the end of the day, more than half of the people are going to be sitting home because the jobs that employ degree holders are not many. In Grenada, we have a relatively small economy. And so you are looking at empowering the populace, the young people especially, with skills and training and education that allows them not only to look for the white-collar jobs, but also to create employment. Sometimes, and coming from Ghana, this is very interesting because you have people who finish with all the degrees, I mean, including myself, and then you go out there and you realize somebody you started primary school with, maybe the person went to secondary school, didn't go to secondary school, they branched into apprenticeship program. They finish their master training, and they have become a tradesman or a tradeswoman. And the amount of money they are making, you look at your certificate and you ask yourself, and how much did it cost me to get this certificate? And I'm waiting for somebody to employ me. And funny enough, sometimes they end up employing us, right? And so that is the power of TVET if it is developed to its fullest potential. It has the ability to create employment, and with the creation of employment, you have a reduction in the poverty level. A reduction in unemployment also comes with a reduction in crime and violence. Ghana, where I come from, apprenticeship program under TVET is one of the commonest. What is the apprenticeship program? So a lot of them don't like going into institutions like we have in ULO. They come into the institution and they learn the skill. No. They like to go to the tradesmen and women who have their own businesses and have been working for years and have the experience, and they learn directly from them for at least 2 to 3 years. When they finish, the industry in which they are working would certify them. And then when they leave, they have now the power to set up their own. And so many of them would prefer that, because a lot of them don't have time for all this business with classroom, but they have a lot of skills, they have a lot of talent, and a lot of potential. And those who go through the apprenticeship program in terms of employment and creating wealth, they contribute so much more. And so for a small country like us here in Grenada, this is one area, because government cannot employ everybody. The private sector is very limited. The number of those we train, when they finish, every year we train about close to 400. And yet, out of this, yes, Mom. Out of this number, you would want to ask me how many of them are actually employed. The majority of them have to end up starting from scratch, creating their own small businesses with very little experience, little to no experience. They start like that and they are able to build on it. Now, TVET also has the ability, of course, to move the economic and the social impact of every nation. What do I mean by that? Now, a lot of the areas, now when you go into UNESCO, what UNESCO is proposing for us, it's not enough to just have plumbers, to have electricians. It's not enough to just have early childhood educators, to have the hairdressers. The world is presenting something to us that comes with opportunities. The green economy, the blue economy. And so we find ourselves in Grenada where we have a lot of renewable energy. And yet we are using very little of it because there's very little training, very little exposure to our young people in the areas of blue economy. We are living in the middle of the ocean, and yet we do very, very little with the blue economy, with marine life. So much more to explore. However, we don't seem either to have the capacity, the resources, and the technical know-how to be able to take advantage of this. And so with TVET, this is where we could take Grenada. TVET also, if I speak from the perspective of NULO, allows persons who have a different approach to learning not to be considered as useless. You can't contribute. Because you cannot read and write, because you cannot complete and get 5, 6, 7 CXs, that is the end for you. A lot of the times when parents or guardians come with their young one, well, the principal told me that my child is not academically inclined, and so that NULO is a place for the person. Now, yeah, we would welcome everybody, but you see, sometimes when we put it that way, we make it look as if these dumb people who can't just do anything, let's carry them and send them this way, all right? And that is why at the beginning I said, when we call TVET skills training, we always forget and we leave the education aspect of it. I read an article somewhere just yesterday. The title of that article was, Competency-Based Education is a Trojan Horse that will kill the public education. Competency-based, that is the approach that TVET uses, is a Trojan horse. If you know a Trojan horse, right, let's look at it as a virus. Right, a virus that just damages everything on your computer. And so competency-based training for some people is seen as a Trojan horse that will destroy the public education. And what is the person's argument? And it's a parent who wrote it. Her argument is that the system that we use in regular schools has been tested for thousands of years, and it has stood the test of time. Why are we saying now that there are some people who should learn differently and we should expose them to more hands-on training? Why are we not forcing everybody to learn the formulas? Why are we not forcing everybody to be able to read, do the literature like everybody else? And so this mother is calling on other parents to rise up against this whole thing that we are forcing down the throat of our children. Now, when we think like that, what we are saying here is that all of us are the same. We have the same ability to learn. We have the same, everything from genes right down to exposure, experiences, and therefore we are supposed to be the same. And we know, those of you who have children, even among your children, they may not be the same. Those people who are not able to do what the school system requires of them, it's not because they are stupid, it's not because they are dumb. It is sometimes because the education system has not been able to find a way for them to be able to learn. Or sometimes also it's because they may be intelligent in other ways that the education system does not expose them to. And so what competency-based education does is to expose them, give them the opportunity to try what they can do. There's a young man, very little, yeah, I hear you, very little, right there in my church. I know he's struggling academically, and he's still about 10 years old. At that early age, he's still struggling in school. But that young man has ears and brain for music. He listens to it, and he's either playing it or singing it. And just think about this. If this young man found himself in a system or in an environment where his potential is harnessed right from the beginning, you know where we are going to have? A prodigy. That is how good he is. And so the mentality that everybody has to be so book, it's really killing us as a nation. And I just want to end by saying this, that TVET is not just for those who don't make it academically, because now, to be able to get a level 2 certificate at NULO, about 40% of the program is theory-based. And so what you say you know, you are not just showing it in practical terms, but you are also made to do some kind of theory work. And so there are some young people who would come to me in Form 4, "Sister, I think I just want to leave and come," and I encourage them. If you are not struggling because of some dyslexia, but you have the ability to learn, finish secondary school, because when you finish and you come, you are at a better position to reap the benefits of TVET. And at the end of the day, yes, we will provide education and training for all diverse groups. But what we are saying is that let us not neglect, or let us not make those who either go into it or want to go into it feel like it is the last resort. Because now at NULO, we have those who finish and have 12 CXCs, 11 CXCs. You have those who didn't do CXC. You have those who dropped out from Form 1. You have those who didn't even go to secondary school. All these different group of young people are learning from the same environment, and each of them trying to reach their fullest potential. And that is what is contributing to Grenada. Going forward, we need to do more to be able to develop higher level training. The facilities, my facilities are not the best to begin with. I am crying for so much more. We want to be able to create a high-tech classroom that sends the trainees from the training into a high-tech environment. That is the environment they are going in. And so you want to create the kind of environment that they are going in, give them a taste of it where they are trained. We are also pushing ourselves to be able to ensure that both males and females are given equal opportunities. And so those who know the NULO programs, for example, we provide skills that appeal to both genders, right? And so I would like to end here because my moderator is already standing up. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the house of the Lord, and that's a religious sister. So as moderator, I didn't have the bell, so I just had to allow the Spirit to move and to speak to Sister Margaret. Sister Margaret, thank you very much for your excellent exposition on TVET, and I am happy with what she shared because it would help you, it would help us to reposition our thinking, to reposition our disposition on TVET, and even what is happening at NULO. I was just saying to Sister Bernadine that part of the challenge that we have with TVET and what's taking place at NULO is that even as educators, our perception of what's taking place there needs to change. What we knew before as skills training, as competency training, has evolved to a different level. So it's not just for the young man who we may think, and I say we may think because every child could learn, every child could excel in something. It's a matter of finding what that child is interested in. But it's an avenue that's open even for the boy who would leave secondary school with 15 subjects. And this is what we need to let them know. If you go to Germany, you go to Europe with your TVET certificate, you're king. You're king. And this we have to help them to understand. So thank you very much, Sister Margaret, and of course you would have your opportunity to ask your questions shortly. If you're just joining us on Facebook or any form of the social media, we welcome you to the second in the series of panel discussions organized by the Grenada Conference of Churches, and the focus is on education and how education can assist, what's its role in creating sustainable development in Grenada. We've heard from our first panelist, and now we move to our second. Mrs. Franca Alexis Bernadine. Mrs. Alexis Bernadine's career in education and administration spans some 38 years. She has worked in the education systems in the Bahamas, Jamaica, Barbados, and her hometown, Grenada. She was educated at the St. Joseph Convent, St. George's, graduated in 1970 with the valedictorian prize of La Rosa. While at school, she participated in a wide variety of activities, including becoming a national netball player and a Queen's Guide. She holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in Chemistry and Zoology and a Master's of Science degree in Ethnology and Zoology from the University of the West Indies, Mona, Jamaica. She also holds a Diploma in Management from the Manitoba Institute of Management, Canada. Mrs. Bernardine was an assistant lecturer at the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill, Barbados, and taught at the St. George's University for 6 years before going on to become Associate Peace Corps Director, Eastern Caribbean, working with the United States government for just under 10 years. She served in the Bahamas as Vice Principal of St. John's College for 4 years. Mrs. Bernardine moved on from the U.S. Government Peace Corps Director to serve as Senator in the Parliament of Grenada for 10 years and was appointed Minister of Education and Human Resource Development for 5. She was later elected to serve on the Executive Board of UNESCO in Paris, the first Grenadian to serve on the Executive Board for 4 years, and has been the keynote speaker at the Inclusive Education Special Education Session in Geneva in 2008, and other education forums in Paris on tertiary education and Mexico City on adult education. Her community involvement has been wide and varied and includes chairperson of the Prison Review Commission and president of the Grenada Netball Association. She was hired to design and implement the UN Program for Adolescent Mothers and became its first manager. Her involvement in youth was at the New Life organization, where she served as its executive director for 5 years. Mrs. Bernardine is recently widowed and is the mother of 5 professionals: 1 airspace engineer, 1 lawyer, 1 medical doctor, a surgeon, 1 environmental specialist, 1 general manager. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome to the microphone Mrs. Franca Alexis Bernardine.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Don't click on the clock yet. Good evening, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here. Distinguished guests, heads of the Conference of Churches, whoever may be here, I see 2, and other members of their churches, parishioners of the Presbyterian Church, of course, and other churches, parents, youth, online guests. It is really a pleasure for me to be here today to share some thoughts, and I put it that way, on the theme of education and its relevance to nation building, particularly in the context of developing countries like our own Grenada. And let me hasten to congratulate the Conference of Churches for holding a forum like this, and indeed all others that they have. I understand there's one before this one, and they intend to continue. And this is the sort of empowering experience that's going to really make the difference for us, because we live in an island, a country, where information is really, the circulation of information is a big issue. And people are often left in the dark with these things. Now, the topic itself is wide and varied. And what I've tried to do is to keep it simple so that everyone can relate to it and to the information given, and just highlight certain perspectives of it, because we're not going to be able to touch most of the areas. And but with a question time attached to the talk and presentations, I think we could cover good ground, despite the time limitations, the 7 to 10 minutes. There's an old Chinese saying that I would like to start with. And it says, it's from Confucius, by the way, if your plan is for 1 year, plant rice. If your plan is for 10 years, plant trees. If your plan is for 100 years, educate the children. And it sums up really how I feel about the whole thing, and also too how I would want to convey that message across. It would be foolhardy for us to imagine that development and growth could take place in any country without the education of its citizens and the empowerment of its people through education. Can't happen. In the Eastern Caribbean, there is a particular relationship too between our achievements in education and the job market. Big connection. No matter how lofty our goals, powerful vision of the economic development that's planned and projected as feasible and guaranteed to produce growth and development, they are doomed to failure unless the people themselves are capable of carrying out these policies with the discipline as well and the knowledge base to make it happen. People make things happen. And sometimes I listen to the many plans that give us hope of how things could develop and what all could happen. Unless the people are involved in it, it can't happen. So it explains very clearly the relationship there. Our very own Sir Arthur Lewis, who I presume you would have heard of because he's one of the 3 Nobel Prize winners in this part of the world. He's on the $100 bill for the young people who may be listening in. Big man. And we've produced 3 such in a tiny part of the world. 2 in St. Lucia, stone's throw from each other, and 1 in Trinidad. So we got plenty talent around here and plenty ability. There are many countries, there are 190 nations. Many of them have never produced 1. Bear that in mind, and it's something that always motivates me when I look back and I say, okay, they're there. We just need the opportunity now to draw them out and find an effective way to do so. And Sir Arthur Lewis was very clear on the importance of the role of education in bringing about development in small island states. And so it's something we need to keep very closely in mind, because are people equipped to carry these ideas out, these economic ideas? Who will fill these roles and how? Without the education, we are doomed to mediocrity and struggle to stay alive, let alone to lift the economy so all could make a reasonable living. Can't be done. We need the education and the skills training of the population. In Grenada, and indeed the Eastern Caribbean, our struggles must constantly focus on the basic read and write principles, because our job market is heavily dependent on it. Fortunately, technology has greatly assisted as demands for skills worldwide has grown exponentially. So the demand has been tremendous worldwide as well as with us. Could I have the first slide, a quick slide, because I just want to show you the relationship between the working world. Very interesting data. Okay. So if you look, I have my own copy here, so I'm going to explain from this. It's called Education, the Ultimate Poverty Fighter. And to make this easy, just read the column on the far side, the right-hand side. The very first line or graph that you see at the top represents people in Grenada and the OECS who have university and tertiary level training. That's their earning capacity. So, on your left-hand side, you will see wages in EC per year. And on the right-hand side, you see the different levels of education. What it shows you, the second graph is with post-secondary. And you notice the difference in level in the salary. The salary of a university person or college starts at 20,000. That's it, way over on the extreme left-hand side, and it goes up. Notice how the graph is climbing nicely. The second one is post-secondary. So if you had secondary and a little bit extra, your salary scale is between 10,000, starts below 10,000, but it runs up to 30,000. That's your ceiling, because you notice that carries you right up to age 60. That's the ceiling there. The third graph shows you what you earn with secondary education only. It starts below 10,000, and it runs, that's the little triangles, and it ends, you can see where it ends there, 20,000. And then the two lowest graphs represent primary, the one with the little bricks, and then no schooling and less than primary. That's the earning capacity. They start at 5,000. Primary goes up to just under 10,000 for the year. And without any basic education, starts at 5,000 and it runs on to just over about 7,000. This is taken from the lives of people. This is not a projected suspect of what you think. What they did in the Eastern Caribbean, this is now a World Bank document, and it's contained in a book called School and Work in the Eastern Caribbean. So I'm not making these things up. It's online, and it's been around for a little while, but it's there, and the statements are still very relevant. Figures have gotten a bit bigger and varied somewhat, but significantly this is it. So it's a big thing for us in the Eastern Caribbean, how this goes, and therefore the importance of people trying to get college and going to the new lows and the various areas. Incidentally, that same report states quite clearly, and I mentioned it here further on in my talk, that the way forward in terms of earning capacity is in technical education until 2040 in the Eastern Caribbean. So it's not a supposition that you should try to change your perspective. The perspective needs to change in a hurry. And that's why we have done various efforts that have been made to adjust. You got to move with the world and what's happening there. But what they've indicated is that the job market is in the area of technical skills, including computer skills, of course, because that's the technology, of course, is the big rush there. But generally, all the technical skills, and we assume it's because too we're at a building phase, we're still at a level, we have countries that are at that level of development. But whatever it is, the job market is in those areas, and so we've had to do this. It is clear to make this work, all children of the nation must have the opportunity, including all those who are labeled late learners, otherwise abled, those who are disinterested, bright but not focused. All these labels we give children. Only sport they're interested in, only music, art and painting, all must have a chance. The mantra must become, every child must have a chance. I want to pause a minute to just share a little experience, really. It was at the laundry in Tempe. And I went there one day, a couple years back, and saw what you call an otherwise abled child, that we used to call before disabled child, sitting there very nicely, folding the clothes. That was her job. She was holding a full 8 to 4 job, She folded the clothes every day as they came out, and she was part of the system. That's what we're talking about. Opportunity for all, at whatever level your talent would be, or your ability can handle. And that gives them, as you know, it helps them to be productive citizens, but it also helps them to be proud of themselves and their own levels of achievement, emotional satisfaction, and so on, all goes with that. But they are productive members of society. I heard it mentioned earlier, but the previous concept of only the academically gifted must be given the opportunity. We have to move on from there. Okay, the world has gone long past that. So I want to endorse too what the previous speaker indicated. We're well aware of that. It's not about the academically privileged alone at all. It is important that they determine their God-given talent and interest and ability, and that's what, of each child, and to help him or her to excel in his or her area of competence. Hence the reason for the teacher training and the teacher knowledge base. You could say you're carrying children, but if you don't know how to draw it out, if you're not a trained teacher, it can't happen. Now, may I hasten to say to you that back in 1983, when I was in the Bahamas, there was no question of getting employed as a teacher unless you were degreed with teacher training. You didn't even anticipate. And they loved taking people from the Eastern Caribbean. We had about 5 from Guyana on the college. We had 2 Grenadians. There was a young lady from Carriacou, and Alexis from Carriacou turned up at the same college there to teach. And there were about 5 Trinidadians, about 6 Barbadians. They had about 8 Jamaicans, and the rest from the Bahamas. But that was a foregone conclusion. The children then had the opportunity, of course, to be useful and productive citizens in the country, not only in their country, but when they traveled as well, for themselves and, of course, for the nation. The link between education, nation building, and economic progress is established right there. They go hand in hand. You need the education, you need the nation, it's part of the nation building and the economic progress. I will get back to a comment on the teachers' situation in a short while. Adult literacy program, just as the Yes I Can, must also go hand in hand with that. There are adults who have not, and you're surprised to know the amount of them that are there, that have missed the opportunity even for the basic reading and writing. And certainly when we ran the Yes I Can program from Cuba, there were always significant numbers of graduates, sometimes as much as 100 and something people graduating from the different parishes in the literacy program, because the adults have a critical role to play in the whole process as well. And so I was happy to hear it hasn't run for the last couple of years. They've had no Yes I Can. But it was good to hear the Prime Minister and in his recent trip and the present Minister of Education say they're going to reopen the adult education program. We can't build a nation with part of the people. Everybody has to be part of it and has God-given talents that they could move with. Now, and that was another reason why the CPEA, you might have heard that the common entrance was removed and the CPEA was put in. CPEA is Caribbean Primary Exit Assessment, which we put into place. And it's because it gave greater opportunities and determined more effectively the skills of the child. So as they move into Form 1, the profile that goes with them, the principal understands, or should be understanding, whether this is an artist who wants to include woodwork and music, whether this is a science student who would like to learn how to build cabinets. As I saw in my own family, my daughter is a fine woodwork worker, and she's never been into woodwork, but she learned it in the same Bahamas in Forms 1 and 2. So the reality is that children are gifted in all different ways, and we're moving to that width of perception on the whole education process. Now, tertiary education has become an integral part of the education thrust. in today's world. For people of the Caribbean, indeed, it's what happens the world over. The smaller islands, and I put a little plug here for that, the smaller islands still need support in this area, although they have made such a gallant effort. CARICOM needs to ensure greater opportunities for the lesser developed countries, since the larger islands of Jamaica, Trinidad, and Barbados have ensured many years of opportunity for their people. Islands like ours still have to travel, we still have to trail behind in the sequence, and often have to travel to do so. The dependence on scholarships, for example, from foreign colleges and universities, and we were able to access that through the development of a scholarship desk, specially established entity in 2008, September, so that we could get our people now to benefit from the tertiary level education. Ministry's report of December 2012 would indicate that this went a long way to being able to assist our people in getting tertiary education. Now, I want to share with you a quick comment from the Vice-Chancellor. He's no longer Pro-Vice-Chancellor. The Vice-Chancellor of UWI, Sir Hilary Beckles, and this is his comment on tertiary education. Tertiary education, college or university, helps the entire culture to rise. Everything we do, how we speak, how we behave, our cultural expressions, the arts, how we care for the elderly, how we nurture our children, support domestic violence, suppress domestic violence, enhance the respect for the environment. All of these actions constitute the value tertiary education, university and college level, can bring to lift a people to a higher level of comprehension. That's what he says. Professor Hilary Beckles, UWI Chill magazine. It's right there. So what we're saying is that it must become like a routine. If we're getting ahead, just like you always go through to, primary and then you go through to secondary, tertiary has to come after that, including tertiary institutions like NULO and others. You can't stop at secondary anymore. You're not keeping up with the rest of the world and so on. So that's a reality we have to bear in mind. Now, understanding the critical nature of education to our continued development as a nation, I want to spend a minute reflecting on some of the main constraints we face in Grenada and the vital importance, the factors that help, and the vital importance of some of the strategies we have. And with those, I want to look at the first one. Our issues are very simple in many ways, you know. One, we have too many students per class. In Grenada, we have easily up to 40, 45, in some cases, 50 students a class. The accepted ratio is 20, yes. And it shouldn't even be 25. If we were, certainly in the Bahamas, a teacher was entitled to tell you, no, she would not accept any more in her class, and you would have to ask her. I'll have to say, well, could you take one more? Because that would bring it up to 21. Round here, we pack in 40 and 45. You're putting an enormous burden on your teachers because there's class control, there's ability to focus on them, people are different learners, and it's much, much harder to assist them in that regard with class size. So that was why J.W. Fletcher was created, because imagine to yourself what would happen. All those children at J.W. Fletcher were headed for St. Joseph's Convent, Presentation College, the schools in St. George's. So our first problem is so basic. It is the size of the class. The teacher training and qualifications, well, from 19% in 2008, we raised it to 50% in 2012. And that is, we did that through giving scholarships to the teachers. They would pay we would pay 2 years and they would pay their final year. And it made a world of difference. You run into people all the time with that. Where it is at the moment is still rather cloudy, because I understand that we are all still back into the teaching position of putting A-level people and people at that level to teach students in secondary school. The kids are well past that. They are, in a lot of cases, they are faster and some more intelligent. They got more database. You need far more ability than that. You need to be solidified in your area of competence that you're teaching, whether it's literature or whatever else you're teaching. And in addition to it, you need to have the teacher training so that you can see the learners, the different styles of learners in your class. You can see the auditory learners, the people who learn by listening, the people who learn by hands-on and touching. As a teacher, you're expected to do all of that. You're empowering children, and there are 6 or 7 learning styles. Now, to get all of that, you need to pay the teachers. See, and that's a big issue. I know for us, the reality is we don't have the money. You got to find it in benefits or something. If not, you'll lose your teachers. I refer to my own experience of coming home and being told, well, they don't pay for master's degrees, so they just pay for a bachelor's, and I would earn $1,300. At this stage, I had 4 children. So I called the Bahamas, and the lady said to me, could you come like yesterday? We'll be fine. And that's how people like me ended up there. $5,000 a month, I can feed my family, I can do many things. But look at how they have lifted the level of their society. I am told that the Bahamas standard of living, and I've seen it myself, is well over, their whole economic package is well over what we see in these parts, but they pushed education heavily as a priority. And if we're going there, that's what we're going to have to be prepared to do. So the teachers need to be paid. It's an important aspect of it. We also, we'll talk more about it. I hope it'll come out in the questions. The personal development skills, big. The reintroduction of skills, woods and home economics into the primary school system. So it was taken out in 2006 and it was put back in 2008. And the 2 subjects we started with was home economics and woodwork. And so that thrust needed to be pushed and continued because, as Sister mentioned, it's the way forward. According to the World Bank, I showed you the book, they tell you quite clearly that's the way education and jobs are going in the Caribbean. The Japanese funded virtues and values, including anger management and resolving conflict, which is run very successfully in Antigua and Barbados, is another critical part of it. Can I have the next slide, please? Bear with me. This one is most enlightening because I don't think you've ever seen it. No. It says, lack of skills considered the biggest obstacle for Grenadian firms. And then it says, what obstacles are important for your competitiveness? And let me just pull it quickly and draw it to your attention. It says major obstacles and minor obstacles. So the lighter tips are minor obstacles, the darker tips are major obstacles. Legal system, conflict resolution. These are the listed problems we have here. People do not know how to resolve conflict without a cutlass and a knife, it seems. There are many, many steps in that before we get to there. Anti-competitive practices. Macroeconomic instability, transportation, international, economic and regular policy uncertainties, we're coming down the list, crime, theft and disorder, These are the skills considered the biggest obstacles for Grenadian firms: electricity, access to financing, tax rates, cost of financing, skills and education of available workers. Look at how big that is. See? The skills of the workers. So we can flash off and go to the next one, please, if that's all right with you. So that is how, just what it says, lack of skills considered the biggest obstacle for Grenadian firms. Then comes the next one. Read carefully. Grenadian skills gap most severe in the Western Hemisphere. Okay? Look at it there. And this is coming from the same World Bank document. Grenada is at 4-1. You see it over here? At 4-1, way over. Right. There is Grenada, and Guyana is next to us. And after that comes Brazil, Guatemala, Honduras. You see where we are with our skills gap? Chile, Ecuador, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Peru, till you get to Peru. So we have the greatest gap on there. No other Caribbean islands, I wanted to tell you. Okay? Then comes in now the small OECS and so on further there. That's how far we are complacently sitting by on this situation. That was reality. Now, granted, that is a year or two ago, and it's taken, they don't have another recent production of that document, but we haven't moved, we have made progress, and you can see it from the CXC results, but we're still licking up well down at the bottom there. So get it real and understand, parents particularly, what we are facing in terms of whatever. I wanted to mention too, according to the World Bank projections, which we said, made since 2009, technical skills, including computer skills, will be the highest demand for employment in the OECS, right up to 2040. It includes cybersecurity, AI, everything else there, etc. Along with these areas, discipline, knowledge base, personal development skills must be part of the whole curriculum thrust. The critical thinking and problem-solving base must permeate all aspects of the subjects. If teachers not trained, they can't deliver. The average teacher here who is not trained can do the chalk and talk, which is what used to happen before. That cannot work. The focus is now on student experience rather than on teacher experience. It's not, the whole classroom setting has changed. So that's why a year or two ago, when your then Prime Minister indicated that he and the cabinet would go in and teach, I said to myself, well, no. Where would we emerge with that? No, reality-wise, the educators have to be concerned. It's no longer a matter of belting out information and children taking notes. So that's the point I wanted to make. Bear in mind, I don't have much longer, tourism training in all areas of endeavor, from drivers, tour guides, waiters, waitresses, hotel management, marketing managers, and the other big area is the agricultural training in order to enhance productivity. The use of technology in agriculture is a mind-boggling experience. They brought somebody in from the FAO, that's the international body in UNESCO, in the UN, came in from Italy to speak about the technology in agriculture. It is worth listening for the hour. You are amazed the sort of possibilities, because those who don't like being out in the field, everything is controlled from inside, what you add, how you do it, how you maneuver. Very fascinating stuff. I just wanted to share that very briefly. We did see the vision from FAO. With respect to the tourism, we're facing some really difficult areas, and I want to share very quickly an experience with you, because unless you give it the reality touch. We went to we were asked, my husband, late husband and myself, to please entertain an older couple at St. George's University who came down to do a program, whatever, program here and so on. So we went to one of the restaurants in the south. And sitting there, trying as graciously as we can to make things happen, the young waitress came out and she took the order, and then She just found a lady who was taking long. She said, well, why are you taking so long? Your husband done decide already. These referring to the two of us done decide already. You still can't make up your mind. Where I sat, I'll tell you the truth, all I could do is to turn my head to one side. I couldn't say anything at all. I was so embarrassed, I cannot explain. Fortunately, they laughed. They took it as a joke, you know. Why you can't make up your mind? She's standing up right there, quarreling with the lady for not making up her mind. That is the reality of some of our experiences here. Gratefully, that is not the case in all. We've been to a number of fine restaurants even the last 2 or 3 days, and the service was really superb. But it's not the superb service that's going to keep you back. See, it's a service of this kind, where she genuinely did not know any better. You know, she just thought, well, whatever. And this is a fancy restaurant in the south, eh? So we have to be aware. The young fellow at the pump yesterday said to me, I said, did you give me $100? Look on the pump and see for yourself. I said, my friend, let me pause to tell you. What you should really, because I won't come back, see? But what you should really say was, yes, I gave you the $100, and if you're not sure, look at the pump. So these are little ways. It don't happen so in Antigua and the bigger hotels. I have been to the Jolly Beach in Antigua, and the young people there are new size and age. And the courtesy is phenomenal. The islands are taking it on. So my only little warning is wake up, Grenada, and get the thing doing, because you have the training people here, you know. I just wanted to say as I end, you also have big management issues in the public sector. Bright people, but wrong attitudes, I'm afraid. And I've worked there for 10 years. So the role of education in the development and productivity levels of our nation becomes evident everywhere. In a small island nation like ours, everyone must be involved in doing their bit. Parents need to support the children. Everybody needs to get involved, because we few people, and we got to get this thing together. The general educating of the public must be raised to a much higher level, just like you're doing now through your public fora, your talks. The NGOs are to be highly commended for it, and some ministries do a good job, but people still don't know. I must give you this one as I end off. I was doing, a couple of years ago, a little campaigning in the Victoria constituency, so I could get a little feel for what the people really want and how I can best make a change for them. I met a young lady she was about 47, and she was sitting outside the constituency office. So I chatted with her, and I said, she said, well, she was waiting on the handout. It's $49. And I said to her, what can $49 do for you? This is a year and a half ago, eh? She said, well, not much, but it at least is better to take it than nothing. So I questioned closer, and I said to her, you wouldn't like to have a hospital when your sick mother over there ill, or you, that you go down to the hospital and you could lie down on a clean sheet and you could get your medications and everything for you there and so on. Do you know, this young lady never knew a hospital provided sheets and pillows. She thought you always had to bring yours. She never knew a hospital provided food. She thought that you have to go down 3 times a day and feed your mother. And then you have to go down to bathe the patient. So it's a lot of, she just never knew. It was a huge revelation for me. It told me where we assume people know these things, but they often don't. They haven't a clue. That's what she thought a hospital did. Well, no, I said to the team with me, try and make sure the children get on the school feeding program, and they get on the books, and they get on whatever else is going to transport. Because you see that generation, I hate to say it, and forgive me if I do, they are lost already. Let us try with the next generation to imbue in them a sense of how this thing really runs and how it should be. It was a startling and a turning point for me in my own career. I never knew there were Grenadians in this day and age who didn't know that was offered in a hospital. But there she was. She's still there, 47 years old. I want to leave you with the words of the former British Prime Minister, Tony Blair, and it reminds us of what all. He says that there are three most important tools in development for any nation. 1, education. 2, education. And 3, education. And it's to be borne in mind. Thank you so much for your patience and tolerance.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Alexis Bernadine. Now, if you ever had the pleasure of sitting in any room to hear the former minister deliver, you know she will be long. So I have to forgive the former minister. But one thing I noticed, she has stuck to her conviction over the years, because even as minister, she maintained that that skill gap should be addressed. And years after, she is still adamant that we must address it. And I believe this, if it's one thing we can reflect on and say about her as a Minister for Education, was that passion that we need to change this thing to narrow this gap. Grenada can't be quite down there. Look at the other people. And I mean, it's amazing that you see a country as Guyana, where, after all, in Grenada, in the 90s and so, we received many Guyanese teachers here. Those of us who went to secondary school in the 90s, late 80s, no. Most of our teachers were Guyanese. And we were of the opinion that, well, Guyana had it going on when it came to education and training and whatnot. But look, we need to move. We are a leader in the Caribbean, and we must move. We must move. So thank you very much, ma'am, for your exposition. People, and that relationship among education, productivity, employment, and earning, and the whole 9 yards, the importance of teacher training in developing and moving our system. Thank you very much. Our second speaker, Mrs. Franca Alexis Bernadine. Ladies and gentlemen, we're moving on to our third speaker, the gentleman sitting at the head table, Ojas Dioka. He's a vibrant young adult studying in Form 4 at Westmoreland International School. He has been a student at Westmoreland since his KG1. He came to Grenada when he was 7 months old. Ojas has always excelled academically. He came first in the CPA exam at Westmoreland in 2020. Last year, he was a member of the Westmoreland debating team. They secured the second position in 2023 Grand Lake debate. Yeah, the second position. In addition, he received the People's Choice Best Debater Award on social media. Ojas and his team also secured the first position in the Independence Quiz of this year, 2024. He is also involved in many extracurricular activities. He is currently learning to play the violin. He's involved in karate, swimming, and sailing. He holds the 4th rank in Shotokan Karate and preparing for his next rank. He is a Woodland Warrior Sailing Club member and won first prize in Junior Sailing Regatta. And he was an under-15 swimming champion in Westmoreland School Swim Splash in 2023. Ojas is kind, loving, and an enthusiastic young man. He is pretty popular among the students, and he is the president of the Student Council. Ojas has several friends across different schools in the southern part of the island, but by no means, but not least, Ojas presents himself as a proud community member. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome to the microphone the gentleman at the head table, Mr. Ojas Dioka.
Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is well. Thank you so much, Mr. Kenny James, for bringing me up here. Thank you, fellow panelists. You may start the timer now if you want. Distinguished members of the panel and esteemed guests, live and online, as we gather here today to engage in deliberations on the weighty theme of the role of education in creating national sustainable development, I'm reminded of the timeless words of Nelson Mandela. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. In the annals of human progress, education stands as the bedrock upon which civilizations are built and futures are shaped. Today, it is my privilege to navigate through the corridors of this critical discourse, shedding a light on the indispensable role of education in Grenada's odyssey towards sustainable development, fortified by meticulously researched insights and initiatives. Before I get on to my main point, I would like to state, before I found this main point, I was going to do vocational studies, as Sister Margaret stated, TVET. I was gonna speak on those topics, but Ms. Rufin here, she explained how that would not be necessary since Ms. Margaret has done it already. So I would like to enlighten you on my main point for today, which is environmental awareness and sustainability. Now, if we are to address the issue, we should start from the root of the cause, should we not? Which is the modern day school education systems. Parents and children are mostly driven to achieve good grades to pursue their careers in medicine, engineering, business, and technology. As Sister Margaret said, those are the white-collar jobs, that many parents and children are pursuing nowadays. But many people are focusing on jobs that are high pay and that have a high status quo. We label these people as educated, right? Now, esteemed guests, what have these educated people done to sustain and preserve our environment? An example as small as this one, such as when I see people still washing cars on the onset of dry season. People throw trash out their cars and into the environment and the sea. Unfortunately, even well-educated people are not an exception to it. I feel sorry about my education system when I see this happening. We may label jobs such as farmers, cleaners, garbage collectors as lowly jobs, but at the end of the day, these jobs are the ones who are more environmentally sustainable than any other job we can list. Everyone wants a job that is yielding high, and in fact, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not trying to state that being a farmer is better than a doctor or being a doctor is better than a farmer. The point I'm trying to prove is that topics or subjects such as environmental studies or agriculture science isn't included as a mainstream subject in modern day school education systems. This causes the next generation to lack environmental awareness, which would not contribute to the sustainable development we are striving for now, would it not? At this rate, if we keep pursuing sectors such as technology and business, we won't have a world to do technology nor business, but rather a vast wasteland. The oasis of knowledge is a mirage in the desert of ignorance. Quote I found online somewhere, don't remember the source, sorry. At the same time, does our school education system create awareness of the environment that we live in and the soil in which we grow our food? The earth itself we do not look after. Teachers are basically glorified babysitters and are just there to make sure we follow a given syllabus that has been there for several decades. I see a lack of awareness about environment conservation and preservation of natural resources, migrating to sustainable energy, and quite a few other areas in the school education system. have not been focused on. The world has been changing a lot in the last 200 years, and we have seen a great deal of environmental damage in the recent years. Few of our previous generations did not have to be so much aware of these issues, as they had enjoyed plentiful of natural resources like water, clean air, and fossil fuel. But our generation and the future generation need to look after it. But how will we do so if we are not taught how to do it in school? My generation definitely is left with the limited resources that I mentioned earlier as compared to what we had in the past. Deforestation of large areas in many countries has greatly affected rainfall in several areas of the world. Pollution and global warming is knocking our doors, and we as a small island nation are not far away from it. How many people here have actually thought about the deforestation in Grenada? Recently, I found out that by Lavera Lake, Lake Antoine, I believe, they're currently cutting down the trees in order to build a new hotel. Now, would that not destroy the beautiful, serene view that we get whenever we go by Welcome Rock and we see the sun setting down? It would instead be filled with hotels and parking lots and cars, no? So because of that, the ignorance we give to the environment is severely detrimental to future generations. I believe the education system needs to focus on creating environmental awareness and to be more practical right from primary school and secondary school. Because we should not be focusing on primary subjects from college level or tertiary level school systems. We should start them from primary school instead of just beginning them when we are now matured and ready for more advanced level education. And we need to start more caring about the environment. I believe that if we are more practical from primary and secondary school levels, so that the younger generation will now imbibe this culture and modern values of caring about the environment. Conservation of natural resources and switching to sustainable energy. Thank you so much.
Mr. Dioka, you are indeed a debater, and sir, you stuck to your time. Thank you very much. Well done, well delivered, for reminding us of the importance of sustainability and teaching that in the education system. The fact that this is a process, as he said, that must start from young. So the KG, there must be some element of that running through our entire education system, that as our children grow, as they mature, that they mature with that level of consciousness that this is important. The value that we place on the earth, on the things that we have, on the resources that we have, even our human resource. Because the levels of violence that we see exhibited by some of our young people, that too is a threat to our sustainability. Because as a people in Grenada, a small island, our most valuable resource is our people. And I always say, every time I hear that a young man loses his life in some violent act, I say, oh my God, that's one less contributor to the NIS. And the NIS Grenada needs numbers. So we have to ensure that we let them know there's an economic value in safeguarding each other's life. And that too is very important. So Mr. Dioka, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, shall we put our hands together for all our panelists? So we've had 3 presentations, and we will open the floor now to hear from you, your questions, your comments that you could direct to any member of the panel. Sister Margaret delved into TVET and the importance of TVET education and training in Grenada. She touched a little bit on what's happening in Nulo, what they're doing there. I was tempted to say Honorable Franca Alexis Bonadine. Sister Bonadine shared with us from her experience in education and as an educator and a minister, and some of what she has seen and the research that she has delved into in relation to that skills gap, the issue of productivity, the issue of employment, earning, and that relationship with education. And of course, Mr. Dioka delved into the importance of sustainability, conservation, and that training within our education system. The floor is open to hear from you what you may have been ruminating on while sitting there. Maybe there's something you want to add to what one of the presenters have shared. The floor is open. My brother, I recognize you. You can come to the microphone.
Oh, it's working?
It's working.
Hello? I'm glad to hear this today, and thank you for your presentation today. Oh, my name is Chan Young Choi. I'm from South Korea, and I work at Wesley College nearby the stadium. So I'm glad to have Miss Bernadine to hear that there's too many students and too many students and the teachers can't hold it. And I work as a student support officer in there, and sometimes teachers are very overwhelmed because there's so many students. And also, you says that the competitive education is very harmful, like a Trojan. I don't know who said the Trojan horse. Oh, sorry, this is America. It's a Trojan horse. Yes, because the systems, some students they're giving up. I saw that some students they're giving up their educations because of the overwhelmed by the educations, and they're goofing off. And sometimes some students are refused to get an education projects. So my question is, how do we encourage the students who is giving up their education systems, and also how do we make a good effort to encourage the teachers who are overwhelmed, lots of students? That's the two questions from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my brother. So, Mrs. Bonadine, I'll give you the first shot at that, and then we maybe have Sister chime in also.
What we were trying to do I am not part of the present education system except on the periphery to assist in whatever ways I can. What I think we need to continue doing is to broaden the scope of the curriculum so that children are able, that's what we had in mind when we brought in the CPEA, so that a child could choose and your principal and teachers could see the trend of what areas, subject areas they like. You cannot put 8 subjects and offer that alone to a range of people. In other words, your system, I hate to have to say it, is way behind in terms of what should be offered to those children. The previous system from which we came in our history would put 8 subjects there. You do them or you die. So simple as that. And that's how it was presented to us. That's why we try to introduce things like art and subjects that were ignored before. Well, even sport and the importance of sport in earning a living. That was not feasible in years ago in Grenada. So that you need to have a serious chat with the principal and teachers together and understand that what you are offering perhaps at Wesley College is not wide enough. It can't change unless people agitate for change. So you need to bring that perspective across. The children are bored, wanting to leave. If they were doing what they liked, it wouldn't be so. So what we've been able to do in other areas, like the technical, we were able to introduce every secondary school needs to offer at least 3. That's what we brought in. And some of them offer up to 9 and 10 options. Schools like Boca, schools like SAS, schools like St. Mark's Secondary offer up to 9 and 10 technical subjects. So the children are not always tearing their hair trying to get out of the school. There are other discipline issues, but those too need to be addressed. I don't know if you're getting the point of what I'm saying. It cannot continue that way. You're wasting the potential of children down there. Secondly, if the classroom size is too big, these matters need to be brought forward in whatever forum, whether it is a principal's meeting or your principal needs to bring it to the attention and with the support of. There's no use for us to hide behind these facts. Children do not learn in classes that large. So the reality is if we're making the investment, that is, unless they want to put 2 people to teach the geography class, split it into 2 or whatever. There are financial issues. That is something the school must try to agitate for and work out. You can't just leave discontented children sitting down there. It won't happen. That's what I want to say up until this point in time.
I don't know if it's
Okay, yes, this is on. Just before I address the competency base, just to add to what Mrs. Franca Benedine said, one of the things that surprised me when I started working at NULO was the fact that I thought, okay, the population of Grenada is not so big, probably a little over my hometown population, right? And I know we don't have so many secondary schools in my hometown, we don't have so many vocational schools in my hometown, we don't have and so I thought that it was going to be that small, whichever institution you go to was going, so one of my greatest surprise was to see the numbers, right? And so one would think that, because we're a small country, we don't need so many institutions. But that is where we get it wrong. Because we're a small country, we pay attention to everyone. In the bigger countries, a lot of people get left behind. So many people slip through that. Nobody looks out for them because we are talking about millions of people. Here we are talking about just 110,000. And I keep saying, and I think Grenadians agree with me, there are more Grenadians outside than those who are in Grenada, right? And so, if that is the case, we cannot rest and say, because we are not a big country, we cannot have more institutions. We would need to invest in that. There are some schools that don't have enough in the classrooms, and others are overpopulated. The farthest distance, if you are traveling, could be 1 hour from north to south. So every part of this country, a child could be educated in if we make provision for that. And so some of the areas that are overpopulated, probably because they are doing so well, right? Or because they have set themselves that way. But if it is possible that those that are underpopulated could be given that opportunity, but one of the best options is to increase educational facilities. And the same thing is happening with us now at NULO. And so Mrs. Franca Benedine is talking about getting 2. So now, instead of sending young people away, every year, CXC graduates number over how many? Over 3,000? Over 3,000. Tom CC is able to take the new ones who just graduate, continuing students, those who are coming in to either further or do a level higher, every year combined, term CC might take about 1,900. And so the new ones who are coming in might probably be about 1,200. New low might take about 400 by the time the year ends. What happens to the rest? So you realize, as small as we are, we still have a good number that don't get any opportunity. Right. Now, coming back to the competency-based, one of the things I learned when I was in university with the problem of university education is that you learn a lot of things theoretically. You know everything in the book. You can produce a project work, some kind of forced research work. We know when we talk about research, it's not everybody that does research like research. They can sit in the classroom and produce a research work. And so you have all this, and then you get to the real world of work, and you ask yourself, all the things I learned, how do I bring it into? So you get a job with your certificate, beautiful CV, and then you are given a big office, right? And this is your job description. And then you begin asking, do I go back to the books I used at the university to be able to determine what to do? A lot of what I learned it on the job. And yet you have all the degrees. And so when the point the person who wrote that article missed is this: we are not saying that education should only be hands-on. And what we are also definitely not saying that education should not just be rote learning and just theory. Education, when done properly, has to be a combination of both. Because then it allows you the theory that you are learning, the principles that you are learning, you are able to put it into practice. It is the practical translation of what you are learning that is going to help the country to grow and develop. So if you are not combining the two, so when you see competency-based education as a threat, then you are missing that we are going to lose so many people who could have combined the two and helped the nation develop, because we are afraid that the root learning might not be given the attention that it deserves. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. I see your hand, Reverend. I see your hand. But I want to ask Ojas a question. Ojas, from your experience, you're now in Form 4, Form 1 through to Form 4. The curriculum that you were exposed to, was there too many subjects on that curriculum? How did other students fare? Did some people feel that we have too many subjects every day, 9 periods? How do you see that? What's your reaction to that? Should we reduce the number of subjects, for example, being offered, or I should say the number of academic subjects, purely academic subjects, being offered at the Form 1 and Form 2 levels? What's your opinion on that?
Opinion, sir, is, first of all, there'll always be people who will complain that there's too many subjects in school, no? So I feel that there shouldn't be an increase or decrease in the subjects. I feel there should be subjects that are both educational and vocational. I believe that they should be distributed well among the timetable, because we can't have, I myself have many clashes, and because of the clashes, I'm not able to get a hands-on experience or like in-class experience that I would get from the teacher. I wouldn't get that by missing the class. So yes, there have been people who complain there's lots of classes. There's people who say that there's not enough classes, but I feel there's just right amount of classes, and they should just be distributed well, and they should be more hands-on, and they should be taught to the students and catered for the students, not just them taking something out of the book and giving to the students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Reverend?
I'd like to make a comment and then ask a question. When I was in university, my professor of communications said that many employers are just wanting to make sure that your degree demonstrates to them that you can learn you're teachable. They're gonna train you. So he said, if your parents can afford it, go and volunteer when you finish school, so you can get some experience. My question is this, for anyone who can answer. A number of persons enter teaching as a means of making a livelihood or on the way to their profession of choice and are not coming to teaching as a vocation. Would pre-service training help to wean this system of persons who are not dedicated to the profession?
Interesting one.
This is interesting and very tricky. And I would like to speak from my experience. I believe, yes, some people are born teachers because they just have a knack for it. Whether it is on the way to, it's a pathway to a bigger dream. In Ghana, there's a way we call it, if I don't have any work to do, I will teach, and when I get a better job, I will leave. You hear a lot of people say that because teachers are not paid well. And so it serves like a stepping stone to a better something. There are some people who may not be born teachers, but they have the passion and the desire for it, and so they learn, they are trained, and they become very good at it. And there are some who really want to be in the school to teach, but they shouldn't be there, right? Because it's not only that they don't have a gift for it or talent for it, it's not that they are not being trained, they are going through all that. It's just not. We need, and I like that you use the word vocation. It's just not for them. And that is the experience that I have had over the years. So yes, pre-service training, in-service training, continuous professional development is very critical, but my experience has shown me that for some people, it doesn't matter what you do. You aren't going to change a thing. There are some who become better at it. They may not have started as teaching is my profession, teaching is my vocation, but as they got into it, they came to love it. And so they became better at it. And there are some, because they feel they are very good at it, they don't care about developing themselves. So there is a dynamism. There's no black and white thing about this. But that is my experience, that no matter the in-service training, the out-service training, the pre-service training, for some people, yeah.
Thank you very much, sister. I think that's a very comprehensive way of putting it. There's no one size fit all on this matter. I would say, though, as from my experience, that what that would do is offer the person entering the classroom a greater opportunity for some bit of success, because currently the fact that you come straight from doing your advanced levels, when you get into that classroom, it's a sort of a shell shock, because the behavior that you exhibited as a student, what you're receiving there as a teacher is totally different. And so there are many times you have to find your way. I remember years ago, a teacher came down to the office and she was in tears. And I said, what's the matter? She said, I can't deal with them up there. I say, okay, sit down, take a 5, gather yourself, wash your face, and we're going back up. I said, but you going in front of the class, I am only accompanying you. See, and you're going to go back there and take charge of your class. And she did it. From then on, I can't recall having to go back. But it's a tough position to be in. But if you have some bit of exposure to teaching techniques and strategies and so on, classroom management techniques, it could help you in that orientation process. My brother?
Good afternoon, everyone. All the panelists and present member here. Have a very good afternoon. I have a question. It's not really a question, but then I want to talk to like everybody here and then ask few questions to our panelists. First of all, we heard all our three panelists as well as discussion on the role of education in creating national sustainable development. Okay? In this case, we all said that we have to invest more in education so we can actually use education for sustainable development of the country. Now here, the next step is, we are actually creating those professionals, we are creating those skilled people. How do we retain them to achieve that development that we're talking about? Is because many times people, as they achieve skills, as they achieve their degrees, as they become professionals, as we saw just in the graph, the people with university degrees are earning the highest. But where are they earning? Are they earning in our country, and are they contributing to development of the country? So that is what the brain drain. How can we stop that brain drain and utilize those brains for the sustainable development of the country? So maybe I just want to put that one as a thought for further thinking. It may not be a question, but then it's just a thought that I was going through while listening to everybody. I heard like a lot of good things about how vocational or TVET program, as well as university education, as well as environmental awareness, how important it is in creating sustainable development. But at the same time, I believe that retaining those talents is equally important to achieve this sustainable development. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, thank you. A very important consideration. Mrs. Bernardine, as a former politician, you have any response to that?
Lots of responses, 100 things going through my mind same time. Because the brain drain is something that we have always faced. Oh yes, thank you, sir. Boy, the age factor is really something. Anyway. The brain drain is something that we have always faced in the Caribbean and in Grenada. We are simply unable, just as you rightly pointed out, to absorb the people. An economist may be better positioned to look at this. You see, the jobs were always maintained in traditional professions. Nobody said to you when you were coming out of the education system that you should open your own business or you should build a block of apartments and rent it. You were sent to do medicine, surgery, sorry, Dr. Jenny, medicine, law, fixed professions, teacher, they're not paying you, but teacher was a good thing for you to do. And certain fixed positions that you got into the government service or as high a paying job as you can with an existing firm or an existing government. The trend is totally different today. You see all forms of young people looking to have a horticulture business or looking to get into, and that is such a good trend, but we're still way behind in that. But we're going to have to utilize our own skills here in the form of, we have to change a whole mindset because we cannot absorb people into the fixed positions that are often absorbed. What helps is the online, as you say, but the remuneration remains outside the island. But nevertheless, it is a real perplexing problem. But to me, it has been addressed to some extent. At least they've seen the need, you see, and realize that we are not producing people who stay here or can stay here. There's nothing to do with them. I mean, you go and work in a shop, and that's about it. So we must make the mental shift, in my mind, to developing all the small business thrusts. Like I was saying with the agriculture, I was amazed at the amount of technology and technical knowledge that is involved in growing sorrel and how you can be far more productive, how it can happen, the sort of level of person that can be absorbed into the agricultural field alone. That's why I think this government is doing a great job pushing the agriculture, because there's plenty to be done. It's not just a matter of going out and digging up the soil. So that with the growth options and opportunities. We will absorb a lot more. You won't, I don't think you're ever going to be able to absorb all. There will always be, because they're professions, you know, like air and space engineering, you can't do anything here. So there's no easy solution to that, but what is good is that people are beginning to think and change the approach that was there before, the chemistry, physics, biology, math, you know, and English language, English literature, and that is it. It's really quite an issue, you know, quite an issue that you're looking at. I mean, I'm thinking back again, pardon me another minute, of when we grew up at the convent in Grenada and so on and so forth. And they did extremely well, the 4 secondary schools in St. George's. But the first time I got to hear of the whole issue of history and the slave, I stood up, I remember well. We went to a history lecture because they now decided that people in science needed to do use of English, history of the Caribbean at university. For obvious reasons, you need to know where you came from. But it was such a shock to my system, although I knew slavery was there. I didn't understand. These were the things that my father and my grandfather were subjected to. And it produced such a shock. I stood upright in the hall of 500 lecturers and said, no. But what are we all doing here? Why are we not out there dealing? That was my reaction, you know? And I'm saying that was far too late to learn about that, and hence the narrow opportunities and narrow curriculum or narrow approach that was presented to us is far wider now and made even better with the technology. But we have to get the population to change the way they look at things and become more progressive, you know, so we can absorb our people. Those are the comments at this point.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe the next lecture should be remittances and the role it plays in creating national sustainable development. Because, and when I say remittances here, I'm not just speaking about the money, but if these trained professionals could provide, whether it's through virtual means or annually, you come back to Grenada, a group of you come back to Grenada to give back in some way to the society, whether it's in medicine. And we have some groups that are doing it, but in a more organized way. That in itself could help us in our development. Because the exposure that they have out there is more than some of what we have here. And with the connections and so, it is possible that through their skills, the finances, their skills, their time, and their education, that they could help propel the local economy in sustainable ways. So maybe we have to explore that whole concept and see how far we could get with it. Yes, because we definitely can't keep everybody here. That's the bottom line. We can't keep everybody here. A few weeks ago, we had at the GBSS an old boy who is a geologist come in and speak to the boys. And I thought they may have been bored, but those guys stayed there for about a half day, engaging with the gentleman, because their geography teacher taught them about rocks and so on. But here's a man who is qualified in this thing, came in with a carry-on filled with rocks, local rocks. Each boy had one in his hand. And he was explaining to them how to test this, what type of rock it is. Now that's a whole different dimension to a teacher just putting this up on the projector, or a teacher telling you, listen, based on what the book says, this is it. So these are some areas I think we have to branch off into to see how they can contribute. I see,
Sorry.
Mr. Dioka?
You spoke about how there should be like a more organized way of people coming back and giving to the community. Recently, I've been trying to go for the T.A. Marishokap Award, right? Mm-hmm. So while doing research on it, I found out that certain scholarships that they award, after that you have to come back for 5 years and provide for the country.
Right.
So I feel like that's a good way of giving back to the community what they did for you.
Very much so, very much so. And it's one of the areas that we may need to look into in a more critical manner. How we bond our people, because we must get our people, our young people, to understand that when you earn a scholarship, while the money may not literally be coming from your pocket or your parents' pocket, it's the citizens of the country, somewhere in the back, our taxes and so are being sent to this country's government in one way or another to help them, because there are no free lunches out here. Our country may need to go and sit at the UN and say yes to something that really we ain't so hot about, But because we've gotten a 20 scholarships for some of our young people, we go and we vote. And we have to understand that that sacrifice that is being made by the citizenry, when you return with your degree in this and your degree in that, and you ask to serve the country for 5 or 4 years for a minimum salary, and I say minimum here in the sense that I always say a young medical practitioner coming back may not be able to be paid $10,000, but you must be willing to accept maybe $3,000 to $5,000 on the grounds that you are, in essence, giving back for what you gained. And after that, you could go wherever and earn your big money. That is another area of education we have to look into.
May I just make a quick point, Kenny?
Sure.
You see, it depends on the particular field. In medicine, it is wide enough. So you can always bond. We always bonded students to come back once you were given a scholarship. But it is very difficult to hold people to an area where there's no need for their skills. I'll give you an example. We had a Grenadian student who did industrial engineering and came back quite willing, except where could we place such a student, calling on the engineering division and others to see. And what eventually happened was that we broadened the conditions to say CARICOM. You can serve in a CARICOM country, if not in your own native country. She was sent to Antigua, who lapped her up and used her in their industrial, because they were at that stage of their development. So in a lot of cases, it is not relevant. And the choice then came the question, well, why aren't you only sending people for areas that are relevant for you? Well, you can't hold people down to that. I mean, people are entitled to study where they want to study. And they would take the opportunity and so on, but it's not always possible to hold them to the bond. That was the experience that we found.
I definitely agree with you there. But my contention is, if we are charting a course of development for our country, the opportunities of scholarship that we offer as a country should be in line with our developmental needs. So we're talking hydrocarbon. We know we need 2 or 3 people who could help us with that. We look for those scholarships and we send you. Because we know when you come back, we could start that because we have you. And I always, it's different when somebody is going to dip into their pockets and go and study. But as a country, scholarships, I believe, should be offered, granted, along developmental lines. Because this is one of the vehicles to our development. You understand? And so we have paid for your education for somebody else to really benefit. Yes, in the context of the Caribbean, that's good, no problem. But the Grenadian populace, the Grenadian economy needs to have the opportunity to develop. So again, it's a matter that we need to further explore as to how we treat with these matters going forward. Sister?
Just one. What we are seeing with some of the technicians who have the expertise. Now, before at New Law, you expect to find an instructor who is in the classroom with them or at the lab or on the practical ground Monday to Friday, right? From 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. Now, what we are seeing is that some of the expertise we are looking for and people who have them, they cannot come and give us this kind of engagement. And so we are now beginning to change our own approach. And so we have technicians, experts who are coming in twice a week or 3 times a week. And it began with them saying, I know you can't pay me as much as I deserve to be paid, but I am seeing the quality coming out, and I know there is more to be done. And I would like to offer my expertise, but I can only do it 2 days a week or 3 days a week. And so we had to embrace that. It's still challenging for some people because they are still used to seeing everybody there from morning till afternoon, and now somebody comes in, offer their services, and they have to leave. Now, if for us to tap into such resources, there has to be a change of our mindset. First of all, from the experts themselves, to say that I know Grenada cannot pay me what I deserve, but I want to be able to give back. And secondly, for us also to be flexible so that we can, tap into their resources. Yeah.
The CCC for having this panel discussion, this CCG, for having this occasion. It's most important, and I want to pick up on the issue of the attitudes. So I have 2 comments and 2 questions, and both of them are related to attitudes. During my early years of learning, it became very obvious to me that it might be a good thing to exit secondary school in possession of a competency in a skill that I could walk in somewhere the next day and get a job. And that thought process, I can see, is gaining currency. And I share an experience where 2 of my A-level colleagues supported their professional training by doing their skill and earning money so that they were able to pay their school fees. Further to that, we now have a situation where we're no longer in a job for our career. And some people have to switch jobs multiple times, switch careers multiple times. And would you believe it, there are some people who it is the skill that they fall back on in the latter part of their career, and they abandon the academic qualification, so to speak. So I would like to challenge us as a people to start thinking of exiting secondary school at the very least with a competency in a skill that we can immediately deploy in the workforce to make our population more productive. That's the first comment. The second comment about attitude, I was very pleased to hear about the experience of apprenticeship in Ghana. Another culture that does it very well is Japan. So you see the elderly going to board meetings with their walking stick, but holding their arm is a young teenager or something, and the apprenticeship period is like 20 years. So that by the time the elderly person leaves, the young man knows every single thing about that job and can make a seamless transformation. But we have a challenge here. We are a risk-averse people. And I would like the panel's comments on what we can do to challenge that concept. because our national growth is only going to happen when entrepreneurship grows. And for entrepreneurship to grow, we have to conquer our fear of taking a risk and learn that failure is not moral castigation. It is an opportunity to learn how to do something. And I would like the panel's discussion, deliberations on that. And I close by sharing one area where we started to do that. Some of us here were in school when Junior Achievement was run. And Junior Achievement was the program where a lot of people got some help in taking that risk. So somebody cushioned them, and this Junior Achievement is school children. And there are very many businesses that flourished because the people exited Junior Achievement, exited secondary school, and rolled straight out into a functioning business. So your comments, please, on how we can address our risk-averse nature and maybe what mechanisms could be put in place to support business growth. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question.
Just to start, and then the rest can continue. I am very happy you ended with the fact that Junior Achievement is probably no longer. Is it the same as it was? No. So this is what we are seeing. Back in the day, and maybe Mrs. Franca Benedict might remember, those who came to New Law, entrepreneurship or small business development was something they craved for, because how many people were going to employ you? What we are seeing today is this: the young ones who are coming, they want shortcut, but they don't want to go into the training. So you have arrangements made for entrepreneurship training, and they don't want to show up there. A lot of them want to be employed, because that is, so the risk thing you are talking about, the easy way out is to be employed. And when I am employed today and I don't like the salary or I don't like the face of the person who employed me, I can easily change. You know why? Because we have provided the opportunity for a lot of our young people to get 3, 4, 5, 6 skills through government-funded programs. So you have, when Imani comes, somebody goes to get 1 skill there. When Empower comes, they get a skill there. When SAEP comes, they get a skill there. If they show you the shelves where they have the certificates that they have accumulated, so why wouldn't it be easy for me to just look for a job? Because if it doesn't work in this certificate, I can put it down and pick the next certificate, and it works for me. If it doesn't work in this. And so a lot of the mentality of our young people today is the shortcut. Learning to build business, learning to know how to be an entrepreneur doesn't come easy. What they want to hear is that this is the money, right? I have the money here, and I'm ready to give you the money to do what you want to do. But nobody is going to give you the money if they haven't seen what you are willing to risk. The other challenge is this: a lot of the funding agencies are stipulating times for programs to be completed. And so those of us who are on the ground, we know that probably we need 2 years to be able to complete a level 2 program. But the funder is paying for only 6 months, or is paying for maximum 9 months. And they expect you to be able to wrap it up and finish within this period, because that is how much they want to pay. And so we want to get the quality, we want to get the exposure, we want to get the experience, but we are not ready for what comes with it. And so it's a multifaceted problem that demands different people within that problem changing mentality. So if I am coming to sponsor a program, I should listen to the people on the ground. You are not doing TVET, but then you have sat in your office and figured out how it should be done and how much it's going to cost to complete this program. And I come with already done budget, and you should be able to complete this. You should be able to complete this within 6 weeks. You should be able to complete this. So we say TVET is competency-based, and yet at the same time, in practice, a lot of it is cut short. Competency-based means you allow the person to explore, to learn, and become very good at it. But now we are back to boxing them because funders do not want to put so much. And the young people we have today, as you rightly said, I don't want to use the word lazy, or whether it's an educational system that is making them feel like that. But it's a big challenge for us at New Law that even when you provide the opportunity for entrepreneurship training, some of them don't want it.
Sorry, I would just like to add, you spoke about how people nowadays are afraid to take risks, right? So I find that taking risks is like basically brushing your teeth in the morning. It's an everyday thing. You took a risk to come here, you took a risk to get up in the morning, you took a risk. The people who built this church took a risk to build this church. So the mindset that comes with taking a risk, the fear that taking a risk would result in something bad, we should try to diminish it. Because if we keep being afraid of taking risks, we wouldn't have the wonderful country we have today, no? Morris Bishop took a risk, he did the revolution, and now look at us here. So I believe taking risks is a very fundamental part of everyday things, and that it should not be looked upon as something that is a big thing that we should be afraid. It should be more of like a speed bump, you know? It's coming, you know, you should slow down, take it, and then go over it, and then you can go ahead.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, you see it.
You know it's coming. Slow down, approach it with caution, but you're going to get over. So Alexis, what it is?
Quick comment, because I agree with everything that has been said. I think it's an attitude problem, as has been identified by the earlier speaker. You see, that needs to change. That needs to change, and changing attitudes is never an easy process. I think Sister's point too, in terms of the attitude of the young people. You've tried to provide 4, 5, and 6 opportunities for them. They are quite happy to find out how much the money paid for this, here, and that, and taking the 2 alone. And yet, the national development cannot take place without that commitment and without that learning and that whole process. It's an area of great weakness for us. I don't know if you see, the personal development skills that were introduced, the same ones mentioned in the World Bank and Grenada's response to that, focused a lot on that, but it needs time. Changing attitudes is not an easy a process at all. And I love my friend's here approach, of course. It's quite clear-cut, yes. Take the risk, but it's not that easy for people to take risks of that nature, you know, and that age and so on. So, a lot of food for thought. I'm glad it is emerging, though, in terms of our... my head is all over the place, thinking of all the possibilities. But it starts with that. It starts with dialogue, and it starts with looking at complex issues of how you bring about a change in attitude like that and what all is involved. So, thanks. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, panel. We have one more question, sister.
Good evening, all. Let me again extend a congratulations to the Conference of Churches for putting on such a critical discussion this afternoon. I would have liked to see more people sitting here because I think it's really instrumental for us to move forward as a people. 2 points, or 2 things I want to raise. We speak of young people not understanding, not willing to commit, not willing to... One observation I made simply as a parent. As parents, we try to give our children the things that we didn't have. So, we probably didn't have electricity to study at the time, so I want to make sure I give them electricity. They didn't have a computer, and I want to make sure. So, as they ask, we keep giving. But what I realized over the years, with us constantly giving them every time they ask, they have lost the value of things. So I'll just share a very simple experience that I had. One of my daughters lost their school shoe. Normally, once they lose it, well, I'll go to the store and purchase another school shoe for them because, we can't have them go to school without a school shoe. And it just dawned on me, you know what? I'm going to purchase the school shoe. We're going to go together, but I'm going to give you the bill. And then I'm going to give you a chore. And then you have to work to pay me back for the school shoe. Right? So I'm saying that to say, as a society, we've been trying all these years because we want to help our people to move forward, and we've been trying to give. And I think over a period of time, we have given. Every time they ask, they have lost the value of things. So in some, like Barbados, they pay for subjects. I've known in the past, persons couldn't afford to go secondary school. It's something that you had to work for. So just something I want us to think about as a people. Not that we're not supposed to give, but we have to make sure that when we're giving, persons lose the value, then it doesn't make sense. What we're doing wouldn't work. I want to go back, the moderator would have touched on a very critical point. I'm passionate about education, I'm passionate about seeing our Grenadian people out there. Now, for me, education is about life. The Grenadian, what we call our curriculum, for me, how I see education, it should be, okay, we're in Grenada here. What are the things, what are the problems that we experience as a country, right? And I see our students and I see the persons in schools as change agents. We have these problems. We have the sargassum seaweed. We have flooding. We have crime. We have whatever issue we have. In the school system, we're supposed to be now using our using the information curriculum, what's happening, and create this curriculum that will help, that as Mr. James said, that will help solve the problems that we have in Grenada. So when we award scholarships, it's because in the next 2 to 3 years, we may need, I'm just saying, forensic scientists. We may need some scientists to change the sargassum seaweed into something because it keeps coming on us that we can use. So if we're looking ahead, in the next 5 years, the next 6 years, because it's coming, we need to send these people out to study, right? So I feel over the years, the education system, okay, we add in a little piece of this, we add in a little MCT here, we add in a this here, and we just add in on to us. And teachers say it all the time, the students say it all the time. He's saying that you're not able to have hands-on because we have this time, we have to complete this curriculum, and we're just adding. And I really think as a people, we need to stop, look at what's happening in our society, look at the needs of our society, and draft a new curriculum to take Grenada forward. Countries like Ghana and Germany and Sweden and these different people, Namibia, they have sat down and looked at what they needed as a country and revamped their curriculum. So, to you, my dear panelists, how can we achieve this change that we need for Grenada? I know a lot of times parties come, parties go, they came, they say this thing, they add this thing, and then it doesn't change. But how can, if we want this development to be sustainable, this is the needs that we have, how can we, as a people, move forward? Thank you.
Hi, I heard you made the point on children losing values on things, no? So I agree with that point. I am a child myself. I've heard countless times from my own parents that I'm losing values on things that I should be grateful for and not take for granted. I would like to share an anecdote with you. Last year, December, during the winter break, before in the term, I was seeing a lot of people, my friends, my peers, whenever we went out, they're like, oh, money this, money that, they had money. So I was like, maybe I would like to do a job. I would, take a little job on, get some small revenue. So I have a family friend, they have a store, and I decided, you know what, I should work there for a week or two, see how it is for, future generation. It could be a more...
But here, they are not there. Because right from the beginning, they tell you, but I thought I signed up for electrical. Why do I have to do life skills? But because new law has made it compulsory that you do it, some of them, they may have that mentality, but as they get into it, they begin to love it. They begin to appreciate it. And so a lot of focus has to be placed also on the life skills. And the life skills we are talking about here doesn't have to start from new law. Life skills starts from KG. Basic KG. KG is too old. From, 6 months now, you are sending your children to school. At 6 months, you know what they learn when they are there? Right from that stage. So by the time they get to the tertiary level, by the time they are thinking about personal business, by the time they are thinking about career, they as individuals, because if you don't develop the person, everything else we are spending a lot of money on everything else. And that one thing that could help them appreciate everything else is kind of, pushed to the backgrounds. How many hours in school do we have for life skills as opposed to all the subjects or all the skills we are teaching them? How many for life skills? And because we don't value it, some of them have grown not valuing it.
Sister Bernadine, I know you would want to say something. Will that life skills come up there? That's your
Please,
baby.
thank you. This is one of the areas that I find very frustrating in an administrative capacity in Grenada. Life skills were introduced formally, financed by the Japanese government, as I mentioned in my speech, and brought in. We brought in a consultant from CXC, brought in all 40 counselors in the Grenada system, and designed, I held a book in my hand, it's actually in the car, and decided to launch the life skills. There's some very talented people in that field. May I refer to our moderator's wife, who I discovered very tragically for us, but happy for the hospital that she has been moved on in that capacity. But it makes it very frustrating because we get back to the same point over and over again. Now I will start at the Caribbean employers' desired skills. I didn't get a chance to show you that one because we cut off before then. Here is a list of what employers in the Caribbean. The survey asked for importance of other technical skills, but they were not. This comes from CKLM. It says, honesty and integrity, 86%. Work ethic, 86%. Problem-solving efficiency, 82%. This is what the majority of employers in the region, not only in Grenada, saw as being critical skills for, oh lovely, but you probably can't see it. Anyway, you could listen. Communication skills, 79% of them needed it, 79% said yes, it's high up on our list. Teamwork, 77%. Responsibility, 68%. Dependability, 47% said it was essential. Computer skills, 45%, and so on. So based upon this sort of data, we put together a whole program that could be taught by the counselors in the school. I'm happy to say our present Minister of Education was in fact one of these counselors, so he is very aware of this wonderful program. And it made a huge difference to areas that we introduced it to. I remember Wesley College, for example, had a very dynamic counselor who also left to go on to disaster management unit. But the point that Sister is making, that is a long-solved issue. We just can't seem to maintain, and that is a flaw in our system. Every time our government changes, we throw out one set of systems and start again to identify. You need life skills training. This is now 2024. In fact, introduced in 2009, it is that many years old. We're still hearing it's not done in many of the schools. And that is part of trying to address the issue of attitudes and values, which we have addressed some time back, and try to get to influence the behavior and the things that are happening in the school. So I wanted to make that quite clear. They are established book sisters. They are very good. They are produced by the counselors in Grenada, most of whom are still there. But it addresses just that, because as you saw in the previous file, Grenada's skills gap, you see where it lies. I remember very clearly one day while I was at the Ministry of Education, the Prime Minister called and said, I would like you to meet a certain gentleman, please. I am sending him down. He's closing his business in Seamoon Park in Grenville, where he employs 142 people, and he is moving to Antigua. So I said, well, PM, if he is already, there's nothing I can do about it, but to tell him that the skills training program we have put in, and attitudes and values, and to reassure him with that. He took his business and went to Antigua, and it's running very well down there. He says, for example, I met with him, and he said he cannot correct Grenadian children. When you correct them, they don't come to work for 4 days after that. These are the attitudes and values they are talking about. We are unemployable. If you cannot take correction, how can you continue to work? You know? And he says they are late, often late, but when you pull them up for it, no sign of them for 3 days. It's gone to Antigua and his business is running well. I need to tell you these things because these are the factors that are affecting our employment and our employability and attitudes of young people and so on. The training needs to be done. You have 20, 40 professional counselors attached to the ministry. Less one, she has gone on. You're not holding her interest enough. There are others. Father Mark is one. There's some top ones. His wife was one. About 7 or 8 of them who really did even better than the others, and everybody did well and got through. But we are not utilizing, we've gone back to solving the problem again. And this is what happens. We the public need to sensitize our leaders, our political leaders, of what is important and keep them on the ball. But wait now. Were you not, no, you didn't do the counseling program, Mrs. Lord, I forget her name. Forgive me.
Lord, Mrs. Lord.
Mrs. Lord. Yeah, absolutely, Reverend Lord, indeed. What you didn't do, you were not one of the counselors. I know you were involved. I wasn't sure whether it was as a principal or as a counselor. So I don't know what to say about that now. It's the attitudes of the rest of the society. We don't keep people in line with what needs to be done.
We need to be holding our political leaders, holding them to the fire where it comes to our national development.
That's correct.
And we have heard some talk about the National Development Plan, and it would be imperative for us to grab a hold of that, own it, and to run with it. Our final contribution from the floor.
There's a second one.
Oh, right. So I'll take Sister Lord and the sister at the back, and then we will wrap. Well, I think you should come to the mic because the online audience may not be getting you fully.
Good evening, everyone. What I was saying is that schools in the past had a hidden curriculum. They had the academic curriculum where you learn the science, the maths, and so forth. And then within the groups and organizations that were in schools, like the guides, the rangers, the scouts, because I remember students who were in scouts, and scouts had girls too. The scout movement, a lot of these children were placed on the August vacation. They were placed in like in stores and supermarkets and so forth in the business community. And these young people went to work. And as the young man rightly said, when some of these young people went to work, their whole attitude to life changed. Even some of them who were not performing well in school, when they realized how difficult it was to make $1, even the academic challenges changed. Because they tell themselves, I don't want to be at the bottom there to go and raise boxes and so forth. I want to do well so I can do something better. So it used to happen in the past, but what happened is everything just went out the door. And as you heard, it was said before, like we having a brain drain. It's not really a brain drain, you know. If we're going to keep all the persons that we educate in this country, what will we do with them? Even the agricultural aspect of it, look how many years. We grow nutmeg, we go under the tree, we pick it up, we put it in a bag and we send it outside. The farmer, the worker at that scale. They make it into oil where you could export it, problems. The same thing with cocoa. The same thing within agriculture. What you do with it when you have abundance, what do you do with it? The lesson we didn't learn from the revolution is that when you produce, you manufacture. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend Lord. The Lord has spoken. And so now, my sister, you would have the final say.
Good evening, all. I just wanted to thank and congratulate the presenters this evening, and to agree with just about everything that has been said, and in fact, I don't have much left to be said. But I was very, all of this was so enlightening. I was very distressed about Grenada being right up there with the skills gap, and almost at the risk of making excuses, we've had a lot of socio-political changes in Grenada that the other islands didn't have. We had a revolution, and we've had politicians who I think made a deliberate effort to not educate, to keep people in the dark so they could keep getting the same votes over and over, 50 years ago and so on. And then we came down with the poor and vulnerable, and you were always doing handouts instead of teaching people to fish, you know, and so we have all of this to overcome. I don't know how one does it, and talk about attitudes, I give up. I don't know where to start. You put up signs that say no littering, but it makes no difference. And I've come to the conclusion that these things, we have to almost give up on the parents, on this generation of working people, who tossing everything out of the car and so on, and start with the kids in school, like you did this no smoking thing, stop smoking. The children have to be taught from very early about littering and taking care of the environment and you know, attitudes and so on. And I would really love to see civics be brought back as a subject in school. Everything depends on actually your upbringing. You drive in, old people can't drive in at night because you have all these lights. Nobody's dimming their lights. But actually old people don't have the accidents. It's the young people who create all the accidents. We drive carefully, but everybody is coming on with blaring lights. If you had a modicum of sensitivity and you know, upbringing from home, you would know you have, you know, common courtesy. You stay back and let the other car pass instead of everybody trying to come nose to nose. And you either have an accident or it takes that much longer to get where you're going because everybody backs up and then you have to squeeze. So we have a lot of attitudes to change here, and the education system is lacking in this kind of thing. It shouldn't be you go to school to pass an exam. That's nonsense. It's exactly what this lady says. We have to learn to see what our country needs and this kind of thing. We train nurses, they all go away. We cannot, that's the other thing, we're not offering adequate salaries. You said $10,000? When I came back, I think it was about $1,200. I checked about 10 years later, it was about $1,500. Maybe it's gotten to $2,000 now for doctors. And that's another reason why somebody made a comment only this week to me that in Grenada you can't do one job because you can't make. So we have to find a way. Maybe if everybody paid their taxes, then we'd be able to pay everybody better. It's a cycle, you know. So that's my comment.
Thank you very much. My sister?
May I make a comment, Mr. James? Upstairs. I just want to make one comment as it refers to attitudes, people's attitudes. And I don't know how we are going to fight the stuff to do with what we see on what I call the one-eye monster and the stuff we hear that has, we glorify guys, Puff Daddy and what have you. And I believe that's a big part of the reason why we have the problems that we do now. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, as we wrap, I'm going to offer our panelists the opportunity to make closing remarks. So we would start with Sister Bernadine, your closing remarks.
Before them. It's about 2, but it would take 2 minutes. And it has to do with Dr. Japal's comments on attitudes, which many of you have. Everything that has been said has been very thought-provoking and hopefully would stimulate the thoughts and ideas of others. Let me say that perhaps the skill training may have improved slightly over the last 4 or 5 years. I'm hoping that, because I have not seen the recent data on where we stand nationally, but it is important for you to recognize. Amongst, the civics first, we introduced the same time as the personal development skills, citizenship training, and gave 20 scholarships to 20 Grenadians to study citizenship training, so civics, so that children could be brought on board and so on. That is 2010 they would have come back. When I inquired, they're all over the place. 2 at Center Carriacou, 3 teaching kindergarten, 2, you see, we don't hold the system. So it takes us forever to make the impact that we want to. But it wasn't that teachers and people didn't come up with the need for the citizenship training. I don't know how we're going to address that particular issue. While we are on that, part of the personal attitude is the whole issue of managing anger. And I am watching the process of violence in schools. I have some pretty rough experiences in that regard myself, which I have seen not in Grenada but elsewhere. So we introduced as students, this is it here, a handbook for students. The gentleman was brought to Grenada, there it is, managing anger, and it says resolving conflict. He is a Barbadian who introduced it in Antigua and Barbuda and Barbados, running very well. 10,000 of these books were brought in. First of all, we met parents in various fora and said, this thing has to be addressed and it has to be addressed jointly. No point with us telling you about it while they're in school and then they go home
and 2 slaps and you throw them down and somebody else draw a knife, and it has to be both together. I remember the first pilot project was in Guelph. It had a huge turnout of parents. Introduced the little manual, very practical manual for young people, because it's designed for that, and Caribbean is using it. It's doing very well in both of those islands. He agreed to sell it for half price. 10,000 of these were ordered, came into the ministry, and sit at the bottom of the ministry forum. I don't know where they are up until now. The government changed within 2 months or 3 months of that, and that was it. There are also other books. Here's another one, Stopping Violence in Schools, of which Grenada was part. This was at UNESCO when I was there myself. It was put together. And it says very simply the steps that should be taken. The principal and staff must have, for example, once a term, they must reflect on this and see who are the bullies in the school. You know, each teacher is asked, see who the bullies are in your class. See who the timid ones are. How to look out for children before the violence drops on them. So I brought these back, 1 per school, in my hand when I came back from one of the UNESCO meetings. So it isn't just, and some of the principals have applied some of the things, but you see, they sit on the shelves, and then we're looking to wonder now, why is it not happening? It tells you very simply, there are 8 steps to take before you draw a cutlass. You know, and how do you control? You find you have a one-on-one with the person. If it can't be done, you draw in a second person, somebody you like, somebody you trust, maybe somebody at the church. What to do for each of those steps before you resort to drawing a cutlass. So things like that, I'm saying, are already, they just need to be guarded by the parents and the society, and they need to be implemented. It is very distressing to me to hear now that none of this is being applied. I wanted to share for a moment an experience again with this violence. At the risk, I hope it will improve, because I'm aware of children who have been suspended. There should be a timeout academy for them, because they're not gaining from throwing them out to school. But I remember when I was in the Bahamas, we had a big function for the principal who was leaving. And we had the whole society. The hall is about 1,000 people. They all came today, and the staff was going to take him to lunch 12 o'clock today. We're walking into the auditorium, and out jumps a Form 4 student with a cutlass this big, and he chops. I've never seen a human chopped in my life before, right across the neck here of the student, and the young man subsequently died. Of course, pandemonium, blood strewing all over the children. We had to hustle one group quickly, the kindergarten, the youngest people, to go off. The staff couldn't move for the day. The police swarmed the campus. And of course, all question of lunch, we never left there until about 6 o'clock the evening, because everybody had to give evidence on what and where. This is how unpleasant it can become. The thing to do, as you see, that when your neighbor's house is on fire, you wet yours. You need to take in front and begin the process of training the staff what to do in the event of an emergency, and better still, how to avoid it by spotting the troublesome children and who is getting, and so on, who is getting into problem. That young man was very harassed at the college. He had it. Nobody knew, just like today's present gun people. But you take in front and you train. I don't know what has become of the 10,000, but I'm using the opportunity to talk about all these things. I know the schools have this, 1 copy. Many of them, I suppose, many have left it on the shelf. But it's a very practical way, and we were part of preparing it, a guide for teachers. I just will conclude with the fact that we're not talking development unless we're talking education and empowerment. It's as simple as that. So it doesn't matter what economic theory you hear, and this is no throwing at the economists by any chance. They have to come up with the theories. But until we get this education and the development of our people,
well in the end. It's always going to fall apart at times, but we must continue to try to do so, because that's the only way we will grow and develop. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Mr. Ojas, what are your closing comments, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Kenny. My closing remarks, I would just like to focus on the points many of us brought up, like the youngster in the back, of the attitude of the children. Before I get on with the attitude, I would like to state that my attitude on the job that I took over the winter break has not changed. It has, in fact, made me love and appreciate. And I look forward to going back there and work again. But other than that, the attitude of children nowadays is more of like a rebellious thing. Of course, all teens are rebellious, we know that. But children nowadays, their attitudes are more rebellious because of their peers and stuff. I myself have experienced this many times. Let's say I went to school, and I did, before I met any of this, I would have loved school. I would have, let's say I was doing chemistry class. Before I knew anything about the teacher, before I knew anything of the class, I went to the class, I found that it was interesting, right? I would find it interesting, it's nice, and then after that, I would meet this group of people. Then the group of people tell me that, oh, this teacher is this, and oh, this subject is that. That would change my attitude on this subject, that would change my attitude on this teacher, and then because of that, I would, become more incomplacent in that class and with that teacher. Also, I would like to bring up, there's trends and norms that nowadays the youth have. I do partake in some trends, there's many social trends, but trends such as ignorance and not paying attention to things, or people that are trying to heed warnings to you. They don't heed warnings no more. They are more focused on their social status, or their status quo, as I would say. Many people, every 20 minutes, they need to update their Instagram stories or statuses on WhatsApp. They need a sense of reassurance from their peers that, oh, you're doing this right, you're fitting in with us. Because of that, it gives some sort of it makes the children feel that I should be doing this instead of this. Because if instead the children said, oh, this teacher is beautiful, oh, this teacher can teach very good, oh, this subject is very useful, you could use it later in life, I would have, paid attention more in that class, and my attitude would have changed. So just because social norms and trends and stuff, attitudes of children have now been changing, and because of that, I find that these norms and social trends should change, and they should be changed in school, and they should be taught, like how we all discussed on life skills. Life skills was a wonderful class I did in Form 1 and Form 2. I was taught to make many smoothies and food drinks that I still make them to this day. They're very good. But the point I'm trying to prove is that the attitude that can be learned from your peers shouldn't be the bad ones, should be the ones that are like, oh, did you know I cooked this today? I was able to make this. Oh, how did you do that? Can you please explain to me? I'm in school with my friends, they tell me, oh, I was able to do this in my IT homework. I was like, can you please explain how to do this, because I wasn't able to do it. So instead of learning from each other how to not pay attention or not heed warnings, we should we should give them a more hands-on approach and tell them, oh, you should be doing this instead of this. You know why? Because of this, that. So then the children will be able to understand and link things to things, so they'll be able to understand, grasp the concept. Because if they don't know what's the use of this, they would be like, I don't need it. So because of that, that's how I feel the attitude of children should be dealt with. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Well, so since this was organized by the Council of Churches in Grenada, my closing remark will be a challenge to the council. I hope this is not the beginning and the end. My challenge to you, let's have this at least every other month. If we can have this scattered island-wide, not just in St. George's, scattered island-wide 6 times for the whole year. And not when 50 is over, we stop, make it continuous. the council, the churches will be sitting up to their responsibility. One of the things that Grenadians are very good at, we are very religious. Grenadians are very religious. Grenadians listen to their pastors. We listen so much because we're Africans, A lot of the times, we take our pastors' words very, very seriously. Now, if the council is going to be continuing doing this, and not just on education, so many issues. I'm looking forward to seeing a discussion like this on the crime and violence in Grenada. I'm looking forward to seeing a discussion like this on child abuse. I'm looking forward to on all the issues that we are confronted with and at different locations. That is my challenge to you. And I believe that somebody might say, well, it would just be talk. I don't think so. Why I don't think so is because those of us in this room and those who are online, I believe there is a percentage that the session we had today is going to make a lasting impact on. It has on me as an educator who has responsibility to make decisions, and it is going to affect my decision making. If it affected me, I could count maybe 5 that it affected. And so let's look at the snowball effect and let the council continue with this on a regular basis. And if you would allow me, I will be reminding you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for our panel. Grenada 50, Profiles of a Nation's Journey, 1974 to 2023. The role of education in creating national sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, beyond doubt, the church in Grenada and the region has played an extremely important role in the development of education in the Caribbean region. It's an historic fact. And that is why, as you go around this country, you would encounter, or many of us have attended Anglican schools, Catholic schools, convents, etc., etc. And that's simply because the church, the traditional churches, Protestant churches, have made a significant contribution to education and the establishment of Caribbean education. This evening, we have, again, the church, through the conference, playing a pivotal role in facilitating this second panel discussion. As your moderator, I would like to thank you for the opportunity you've given me to moderate. I want to thank this panel for an excellent job, and in particular the youngster amongst us who has indeed educated many of us on what is happening amongst the youth population, and we are better positioned to deal with some of the issues. Those of you who have joined us online, we want to thank you also for joining us, and let this discussion not end tonight, but let it continue as we work together for the development of our young people and of our country, and of course, our region. So that being said, I thank you very much for your attention and support. To move our vote of thanks and to do our closing prayer, I'm going to invite Reverend Prescott.
Thank you, Mr. James, our moderator, and good evening, one and all. I believe that we will all agree this evening that we have had an excellent time of discussion and reflection around the subject of the role of education in creating national and sustainable development in Grenada. Indeed, we had some deeply engaging discussion and stimulating exchanges among ourselves, and we give God thanks for the way in which we have been able to sit around the subject and discuss some of these very meaningful and important topics. My task basically is to express general thanks, with thanks to everyone who would have shared this evening in this particular activity. And first of all, I would want to begin by expressing our thanks to Dr. Osbert James for leading us off in terms of the welcome and the overview of the discussion. And also, while I'm on that, I would want to express our thanks to the Presbyterian Church and to him as well for accommodating us in this very beautiful venue this evening as well. So Dr. James, we want to express our thanks to you and the Presbyterian community. Secondly, I want to express our sincere thanks to you, Mr. Kenny James, our moderator for this evening. And I believe that your experience and knowledge in this particular subject have really contributed tremendously to the way in which you were able to make the right introductions and enable a smooth flow in terms of from one panelist to the other. All right, so we want to thank you for that. And our three panelists who have really stimulated us and who have really given us a lot of food for thought. First of all, Sister Margaret Yamot, who would have, did I pronounce your name correctly? No? Yamot? Yamoa? Okay. So it's a kind of French, right? Okay. So we want to thank you for your presentation around the subject of TVET as it relates to education. And we want to thank you for your sharing in other ways as well this evening. So we want to thank you for being among us and for consenting to be a part of this particular discussion as well. Okay, so thank you. Ojas Dioka, correct, right? Okay. All right, and you brought us a very unique perspective, I must say, in terms of how education could translate to how we can be more aware of the environment. And we want to thank you for that extremely unique perspective which you brought to us this evening, and for your other ways in which you have contributed to the discussion as well. And we just want to wish you all the best in your own education, and perhaps we would be seeing you in other areas and contributing in other ways around national development and around other topics. All right? Mrs. Franca Alexis Bernardine, we want to thank you for, I must say that when we really approached Mrs. Bernardine, she was very enthusiastic about being a part of this particular discussion, and that really says a lot about her passion for education, and we have seen and experienced her passion as she would have contributed to the discussion this evening. And we are really delighted that you have taken up the challenge, and you really have blessed our hearts and have really shared some important perspective which we can take going forward. And I believe that, I mean, the discussion, maybe we can share it around the island, as we said, and I'm sure that the island would really benefit from your contribution, and from all of us, indeed, our contribution. All right, I want to also express our thanks to our sponsors, the Grenada, our Carib Breweries Grenada Limited, who would have contributed some drinks for our refreshments that we would have at the close of our session this evening, and we want to recognize their contribution and express our sincere appreciation to them for contributing to this particular activity. We would have really liked to engage in a little bit of fellowship where we can continue our discussion, but we will have some snacks and refreshments which will be available as we leave this evening. Perhaps maybe a month or 2 months from now we can come back and we are having some other discussions, but we hope that we can continue looking at the whole aspect of education as it relates to sustainable development in Grenada. So let me thank everyone for sharing, and you, the audience, both here in the church and online, for sharing and participating in this particular activity. And I trust that our minds have been stimulated and that we are moved to do something to see how we can contribute to a much more rounded and development education which would shape Grenada and put us on a platform for development and growth in the island as a whole. So let me thank everyone and pray that we will have. Oh, okay, refreshments would be downstairs, right? We don't. Okay. All right, so with that, I just want to invite us to stand and let us just share together in the benediction. And now may the grace of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all now and forevermore. Amen. Have a good evening, and may God bless you all. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
If I take time and I write down all the things that I love on my island, best believe my list gon' be like 5 miles long. Best believe it's love that makes me sing this song. The cleanest breeze on the waters, friendly people meet in every corner. Stand for
oh, island in the sun. Look at how we've grown, how far we've run. 50 years we strong and more to come. More to come. More to come. We're going higher. 50 years we're blessed, we're forged in fire. Still reaching for more. Going up, going up, 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 up. Going up, going up, going up, 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 up.
We're going higher, going higher, as we aspire, build advances, put people together.
Bang, bang, bang.
It's only up from
It take time to reminisce on the richness of our history from the beginning. From the people who came through sugar and chains, emancipation through revolution. More than the speck up on the globe, more than the ice cream and gold, much more than the nutmeg and the clove. Tell the world we are Grenadians. Oh.
3 islands united as one, blessed with the strength to carry on. We're more than just that island in the sun. Tell the world we are Grenadians.
Higher, 50 years we're blessed, we're forged in fire. Oh, you mean? We going up, going up, going up, 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 going up, going up, going up, 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 up. Inspire, build advances, want people together. Going up, going up, going up, 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 up. Going up, going up, going up, 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 up.
Really and truly, can't find the words to describe what my country mean to me. So much things we take for granted, but so much things they give to me.
Peace and tranquility, family, community. It don't matter where we go in the world, just know that the woman's where my heart is.
50 years, as we shape for 50 more, as we shape to